is a creation of a necrotypicalist.
Yeah, he is pretty mad. I have some stuff that I've left on the individual tracks. I've wiped my group, which is where most of the heavy lifting is doing, but all of the vocal tracks have my typical Slate stuff, tape and mix rack, and then this Shep's Omni channel, which I'm using just for de-essing. So it's actually one of my favorite de-essers, and it's just like hidden here as a module in a Waves plugin. But very cool de-esser. Actually has two in, I think they're in series. I'm only using the first one here. I feel like I usually only need the first one, but stacking de-essers is a technique that I have used before, and it's pretty sick that it's like, this is not even a de-esser, it's a channel strip, and it's just built in right here. And then I have, some of you guys are familiar with my ADT stuff. All these are some like fake doublers, essentially, that are panned out. The 60 tracks are panned out 60%, the 100 tracks are panned out 100%, and they just enabled me to take a mono vocal line, drop it down on that track, and it kind of like acts like a double tracked panned vocal thing. So there's not a ton of that because I didn't track vocals, and there's not that much layering. Like, I don't have a lot of layering to work with. Typically I'm a little heavier handed with layering aspects, but there's not a ton of that here. So like you can see, it's just like here, here, here. Some of these I think I even made just because I felt the need for some vocal layering to help the dynamics of the song at that particular point. So I copied the main vocal track and maybe shifted some syllables around using like some time stretching, or just moved them a little bit to make a quick fake double. Not the best thing, but works in a pinch. Not playing a huge role here. And then looks like I added some Saturn distortion to Justin's highs. So that's what's happening on the tracks. It's just all kind of like technical problem solving stuff, no real tonal things. So let's just bring this up. And then on the bus, all I have is the Slate bus console emulation that's not really doing anything. Let's find this little first verse spot, set up a loop, bring up the fader, see what we got. I think this song only has screaming, but other parts of the album had singing and gang vocals, so that's why these groups exist, subgroups that feed the master vocal one, but there's none of these other elements present in the song, I believe, so don't really need these, but they already exist, so I'm just gonna roll with it for now. We'll leave the master vocal bus at Unity, and I'll just do all my processing over here.
Is a creation of a necrotypicalist.
Honestly, it sounds so good already, because so much of it is handled with the processing I do. The combo of an 1176 into the Pultex into the VComp, occasionally that 1176 would be a distressor instead. Those are almost my only two vocal chains, and they do so much for me, even if they're not doing a ton. Particularly the Pultec and the VComp, just like the bajillion tubes the signal flows through, just handles a lot of the balancing for me. I don't know, like how tubes do that is fucking magical, or how hardware in general has this thing of just fixing what sucks, and like it just makes shit sound better. Like even the way the 1176 handle transients and S sounds makes them sound smoother, like without even doing anything. If you haven't experimented with like hardware stuff for at least tracking vocals, that's the first place I started using hardware. It's just a vocal compressor, and I started with RNC.
Same here, by the way. That's
vocal compression.
Yeah, that was the first time that it really was like, yeah, this is important.
It's easy to just do on the way in, and then you don't have to worry about like hardware in the mix phase, which kind of adds like a whole bunch of other caveats, real-time bounces, being just one of them that kind of suck. But just like compressing vocals on the way in saves you so much time. You don't have to load up. Say you have 20 vocal tracks, which is not too uncommon. You don't have to have 20 compressors up. It's just compressed on the way in. Your waveforms look nicer. Editing is easier. Everything about it is just helpful. So it's a great place to start. And I started with a $200 RNC, and it sounded great. If you're looking to dip into that world, RNC is a great place to start, and then it just gets more fun and cooler and bigger from there. So I feel like I almost always if I'm just mixing, we'll send vocals through a hardware chain, and it just makes my job a lot easier. I can guarantee you the vocals didn't just immediately drop into the mix like they are right now, but before they were processed. So that being said, we're still going to do some stuff to them. We can't just pull the fader up. So I'm going to solo them, start with some EQ, and just kind of go through my process, and then we'll see where I get and kind of catch up with questions if we need.
Manipulate the non-existent forceful belief system of a painted to my profit, the circuit of righteousness.
Yeah, he is pretty mad. They don't call him Demon Carcass for nothing.
It's a creation of a necrochemical breeding theater, algorithmic savior, surveilled entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent forceful belief system of a painted to my profit. The circuit of righteousness is a creation of a necrochemical breeding theater, algorithmic savior, surveilled entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent forceful belief system of a painted to my profit. The circuit of righteousness is a creation of a necrochemical breeding theater.
I'm gonna turn on some verbs. I have a few loaded up. Let's see what they sound like.
Algorithmic savior, surveilled entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent forceful belief system of a painted to my profit. The circuit of righteousness is a creation of a necrochemical breeding theater, algorithmic savior, surveilled entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent forceful belief system.
Cool. So I like having some amount of static delay on a lot of my vocal lines. I'm going to leave it off for right now because, again, it's just like makes it a little more difficult to mix through. This song in particular doesn't call for it as much as maybe some other tracks, so it may be something we automate on or off for certain sections, but often I'll have like a low level, maybe a little lower than this, of delay that's just like on all the time. And it just sort of like almost acts as a reverb, which just kind of like helps add some ambiance and bed it into the music. It's not something that's totally forefront, just helps connect it to the music a little bit. But this tight verb sounds pretty good. This isn't super common for me either, but some of the things that I talked about in like the text info for this month is how there's a lot of feel changes in these songs, and they can go from this tight, precise thing, and all of a sudden one guitar layer comes in, and the feel of the song totally changes to something that's a little wider, a little hazier, a little more ethereal, for lack of a better word. And then you kind of certain elements need to follow that, and the two reverbs are one of the tools that I use to kind of help things fall into their place and follow the vibe of the song. And then this guy's like, obviously he's way up higher, probably for a little more serious verbiage. But yeah, we're going to probably use a combination of these two reverbs as well as some delay stuff to sort of help the song flow along and for the vocals to fit the vibe as it shifts from the tighter, precise sections to the, dreamier, for lack of a better word, ones. This is already sounding pretty good. I'm going to load up a few other things. I might drag one of these over and set it up. I often don't use the BX refinement on vocals, but I do use the soothe. Start with that. How do I go away? Okay, there you go. So let's see what this sounds like. I think I'm still soloed, yeah.
Surveilled entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent forceful belief system of a...
And honestly, even for right now, I'm going to turn this reverb off so I don't have to listen through it.
Painted to my profit. The circuit of righteousness is a creation of a necrochemical breeding theater, algorithmic savior, surveilled entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent forceful belief system of a painted to my profit. The circuit of righteousness is a creation of a necrochemical breeding theater, algorithmic savior, surveilled entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent.
It's another, where is it? Here, preset that I lean on vocal bus. I have two here. Let's see. Which one do I want to use here? I think this one. And it just is another kind of like set it and forget it type of processor that helps me control some buildup in the mid range and the low mids, and then add some excitement on the top end. So this actually like brings some life back to some of the P and T and consonant sounds. It's actually acting as like a slow compressor that starts at a higher level. So it's just adding snap, to those initial starts of some of those consonant sounds up there. And this just helps me keep things in check as different syllables, different mouth shapes, different levels of layering come in. And I usually kind of just like quickly dial this in and just leave it on for the whole time. It's something that you don't have to really worry about too much. Let's see what it does.
Surveillance entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent force belief system of a predicament profit. The circuit.
So it's thinning things out a bit too much, at least in soloed. So I'm going to just loosen the threshold on at least this band and adjust from there.
Of righteousness is a creation of a Nicodemus, breeding theater, a savior. Surveillance entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent force belief system of a predicament profit. The circuit of righteousness is a creation of a Nicodemus, breeding theater, a savior.
Okay, let's hear it in the mix.
Surveillance entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent force belief system of a predicament profit. The circuit of righteousness is a creation of a Nicodemus, breeding theater, a savior. Surveillance entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent force belief system of a predicament profit. The circuit of righteousness is a creation of a Nicodemus, breeding theater, a savior. Surveillance entity, directed by a manipulate the non-existent force belief system of a predicament profit. The circuit of righteousness is a creation of a Nicodemus, breeding theater, a savior. Accepted the portrait of a god of the devotion. With a multitude, the condition of consciousness, consciousness informative discursion. With the ring to it, burning like the dirt. God of all his goodness for me, empty, and in the discrepancy. To resist to emergency, to create is the point agenda. Empty to serve and impedance. Dissolve is our society under. Most of the unification isolated country, demanding a yield to its void.
That sounded pretty cool. Make sure it's like a fluid transition from the lead instrument in the guitar solo to the lead instrument in the vocal track. Yep. What am I And funny that we were just talking about the high end of the vocals, but now after taking a break from them, I can kind of feel that the vocals are a bit too crispy. So I'm just going to move over to that right now because I hear it now, and I'm just going to fix it now while it's at the front of my brain meets. I guess what I'm hearing is they just seem like a little bit outside of the mix, and it's mostly the very top end. Okay, I think that sounds better, but literally after like 20 seconds of just working on the vocals, I kind of like lose that initial thought and I lose objectivity. Part of that is just ear fatigue that's starting to set in at this part of the day. But I think that sounds better. We'll just keep it in mind. Some reverb stuff could come into play around some of the ambience. So you can see these are some of the throws that are left over from the mix. A longer half note delay on that last word that blends into this ambient section. And again, that just like helps that crossover point. I feel a little more smooth. All of a sudden we have an element from like the tight section that's like stretching off into this ethereal land along with those guitar layers that come in. So again, just something you feel and helps move the song through these different passages. I turn on automation on my screaming subgroup. It again dropped my level down. Just modify it with the output of a plugin. Output level. The one thing I wanted to show you guys is some of the existing automation where I use this larger reverb. So that the tight one stays in, I think in most cases, and I just add this longer, more prominent reverb on top of the tighter reverb to, again, help the vocals like soak into the mix when it becomes a little thicker with that ambience. And this is, again, it's a pretty subtle thing, but if I were to take that off, it's just like something feels off. It doesn't feel like the vocals are in the same space as the music. So it's more as a subtle move to, again, accompany the listener through these sections of the song rather than be like an effect that comes out and pops you in the face. So if we solo, you can maybe hear a little more of that verb kicking in.
To exist, to have agency, to create is the push agenda. Emptiness of an impetus. Dissolving society under. Ghost of unification, isolated contracting. Demanding AO to its void.
So again, it's all feel based. Listen to another spot or two here. So the first half of this trade-off riff there's guitar in some of the breaks. And the second half, those guitars drop, and it's just like that main percussive element. So the same kind of thing. I turn that longer verb on for the first half, and then dropped it for the second half in efforts to like make that second part feel tighter. And it's mostly to affect how the guitars and the drums feel, but we're changing the vocals because it kind of like the ambient sort of washes over you from the whole mix. So changing the level on a vocal part, adding that reverb and then removing it, all of a sudden it just feels like the air sucks out of the room a tiny bit more during those breaks, and it just accentuates some of those changes. Listen one more time.